first Boston Zine Fest for us. Because, we've done some other black market and like events around here, but first Boston Zine Fest.
Yeah.
And what is Boston Zine Fest all about for you first-time attenders?
I mean, I guess it's all about all kinds of zines. I think they also kind of focus on, because they have stuff like our stuff, it's like art zines, and some people have like use zines like in a therapeutic kind of way and write their stories, and they've had like readings and panels yesterday. So I think
I grew up here, but I
they definitely touch on that part a lot too, focus on that part.
For sure.
But overall, I think it's cool. It's like I don't know, since like technology is like accessible enough for people to fit their own stuff, like desktop publishing in general is cool because it's like pretty easy for you to put out a nice looking thing with your own ideas. It doesn't like cost that much to get some copies made and stitch them together.
So can you guys tell me about, I see this hand stitching right here. Can you tell me about the zine and maybe the construction process?
This one in particular?
Well, I guess any of them, but.
That one's his. Yeah, they differ. So like this one, I printed on my own and learned how to do bookbinding, like pretty simple bookbinding, stitched together. Some of them were like, they fold up in different ways or are stapled together. So I don't know, there's just like, it's also cool, it's just like you get to mess around with how to make it, like, like a book doesn't have to always be the same, doesn't always have to be like bound with hardcover or whatever, like you can, make it by hand and fold them up like this one, like, it's more of a poster thing that opens up, so.
Oh, really?
Sorry.
All right, I'm definitely gonna grab one of these then. I need him on my wall, so this is
So it's still kind of a zine, even though it's not really a book in the same way.
Yeah.
It's like playing with paper and like presentation. They're all like in general like pretty cheaply made. Then I guess it's trying to like figure out how to present them in different ways and like different kinds of papers or like this one I like trimmed down the paper myself.
Yeah.
So it's like all like feathery and
Can you tell me about this guy?
So this one is like half my writing, half like my collage illustration stuff.
Cool.
And then a lot of his, so I wanted it to be like very handmade. So all this paper is like, it's like a different kind of paper, but it comes really big. So I like trim it down, but it's still digital printing. So you like feed it through like a copy scanner kind of printer. And there's a lot of like misfeeding and stuff, but so it works because it's like the process is still simple enough, but then like the paper really adds like something else to it.
Mm-hmm. Tell me about your zines and art.
Sure. So I can talk about our zine first. So our zine here is supplemental material. It's a science and math inspired zine. So as scientists, pretty much, sometimes you just have little side ideas and you just kind of want to see where they go, and then we just kind of collected those plus some other fun stuff into the zine together. So that's supplemental material.
So those are made from a generative process that's based off of the Gray-Scott reaction diffusion system of equations. There's some really good tutorials online about the Gray-Scott reaction diffusion system. The only thing that I've done differently here than the typical tutorial will teach you how to do is the domain on which these are growing, the grid on which these are growing, is itself expanding while these are developing, and so you get this multi-scale effect. The Gray-Scott system of equation will give you sort of a choral pattern or like dots or something like that depending on the specific parameters, but now with the growing and expanding grid, we can get this multi-scale behavior and you end up with a fractal-like image.
I'm Dean.
Cool. Dean, what are you doing here today at Boston Zine Fest?
I study comics. I make comics like this.
So can we talk about your zines?
Yeah, so these are all comics. I like the mass production aspect of zines, so I try to keep them pretty cheap and low rent, but also play with the format a little bit. This one is kind of like a flip zine. It's supposed to be like a tape.
Cool. So is it
So it's two poems or songs, and they work together, but they're opposite aspects.
I like it.
Yeah. And these two are more, I've always been into comic strips. They're more lighthearted. this one is about president legalizes crime, and then these are just
Hasn't that already happened?
these are just a bunch of strips and small bits that I've been working on recently. So that's what I got.
Not safe for work.
Some girl opened this one up earlier, and one of the comics is just a huge dick, and she said, "Oh, so yeah."
Hey, you sitting there, sitting pretty in your easy chair, barking orders in your underwear. You're thinking you'll tell me what
What's
to
your
wear.
zine?
I run Basement Babes.
Cool. And could you tell us a little bit about it?
So it's me and my friend Jess Leach run it. It's a feminist literary zine. It's completely submission-based. Anyone can submit to it as long as it stays within our ideals of feminism, and we'll publish it. So.
Cool. And what drew you to self-publishing?
I mean, there's a lot of platforms now for people to self-publish or, share their work, especially online, but this compiles it into something that can be shared in a lot of different forms. It kind of hopefully makes their work feel like part of something bigger.
And do you want to say a bit about the work of it, like what's involved to actually produce this and stay on schedule?
So, the first thing we do is we put out a call. We decide on a theme, which is a new thing we just started doing, and we put out a call for submissions. And then as they come in, it's all by email, so we answer the emails. Once we've closed the call for submissions, we just compile everything into Word docs and print it. It's just old-fashioned cut and paste. And then we take it to FedEx or Kinko's technically, I guess, and we copy them.
Cool.
Yeah.
So what motivates you to keep going and putting them out?
Mostly the support we've received has been amazing. People really like what we're doing. People get really excited to submit and excited to read the new issues, and which is fantastic. I've also learned so much and met so many people through it. Which makes me want to keep putting it out and keep coming out to events like this to meet more people who are of a similar mindset. So.
I'm John Carvajal. I do a lot of different genre mini comics, a little bit of sci-fi, a little bit of fantastical realism, fantasy. This one's an anthology I put together with some friends, and my comic's more of a fantasy kind of thing. And then this one down here is more of a, I guess, like a art comic, you can call it. I don't know.
Art comic.
Yeah, art comic.
So is this your first time at Boston Zine Fest?
Yeah, this is my first Boston Zine Fest, but I've done other comic conventions before. So.
Sweet.
Yeah.
And are things? Could you tell me in detail about one of these?
Yeah.
Sure.
Don't spoil the plot, I guess. But,
Oh man, I guess I'll talk about this one. This is my newest one. It's about a Latin trans woman who has an argument with her friend, and she has an accident, and a whole dream sequence happens where she's essentially fighting her own conscience.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right, so Alyssa, so tell us about your zine.
Well, I have many zines actually. I have a lot of poetry zines that I started making. When I started making zines, it was mostly just my poetry, and then I started distro for other people. So I have a mix of other people's poetry and art zines, and some are political. I've started getting some stuff in the mail that was like some personal / political zines. So I have my table split up in those between poetry and art and personal political. But I guess the main mission of everything that I do here on the table is to just highlight underrepresented voices. So I have a submission-based zine, which is the Letters from Rubber Camp. So anyone who's really into making art or writing, I try to collect all of their stuff. It's people who cannot get their stuff published anywhere else, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's why I started publishing my own poetry to begin with. So I'm very into self-publishing and helping and kind of inspiring other people to do that as well. So, and also just sharing the platform, because I like having submission-based stuff, so I can just put everyone's stuff out for them.
Yeah. Great. So I think we touched on a few of my other questions too, but I guess if you could just say in a full sentence, what motivates you to just keep the project moving?
Well, what motivates me? I'm very passionate about reading, but also writing and publishing. So I feel like once I started this, I'm not going to be able to stop because I'm very passionate about publishing and just keeping things getting published, because I just don't think people are going to stop reading ever, but maybe the medium might change. So I really want print media to still be a thing. So it's really just as easy as Xeroxing stuff. So I want to contribute to that. And it's just cool that there's a whole culture around it, so I like to contribute.
Cool. Thanks, Alyssa.
My name's James. I'm a visual artist here in Boston. I'm originally from Philly, but I just moved up, well, not just, but I just graduated from the New England School of Art and Design. So I moved up here for school. And I use they, them pronouns, so I'm trans. And I am trying to work on kind of collaborating with other trans people here in Boston. So that's why I have the call for trans voices. And I'm trying to get together like a solid group of trans people to make art about our experience, because even though there is like a collective experience, there's very specific experiences from people to people, because like we all have different economic backgrounds, we're all from different races, so like my experience is very different than a person of color who's trans experience, and I don't want my version of my story becoming like the story, because a lot of people that I've talked to, they're like, oh, all trans people feel dysphoria because of the nature of the work that I'm making. And I was like, well, that's not true. It's just that I have dysphoria, not every trans person does. And I think that's really important for our community, is that there's so many different like negative perceptions of it that it often gets all clumped together and we don't really get a say in it. So it's kind of like taking ownership and authority in our own like narrative and like perception of our community. So I'm hoping to do that, which is why again I like have the sign up list. This newest zine, it's called Gendercraft. It's all about trans people who practice witchcraft and how that is itself like a form of resistance, and how witchcraft itself has been a form of resistance against patriarchy since witchcraft started. So it's really interesting to like kind of critically examine that.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. Do you want to say a bit more about that?
Well, so I took a class last semester called Women in Spirituality, and the first part of it was talking about Mother Goddess culture and how that's like the oldest form of worship and spirituality on the face of the planet that we've had any record of. But because it's like non-hierarchical and not like androcentric, so it's not like masculine privileging, it's been suppressed over time, and like for the rise of Christianity, they had to like appropriate parts of Mother Goddess culture to like vilify themselves and like legitimize themselves. And then the second half of the course was actually practicing witchcraft, so we were told to like read some books and then go home and actually do rituals. And one of the homework assignments was actually to like summon a candy cane, because it was like springtime, so you're not exactly going to see a candy cane, and so we had to go home and do a ritual, like envision ourselves like coming in contact with a candy cane, or like somehow seeing a candy cane, and it happened, and I was like, what the fuck? So it's like, when you, even though like, yeah, there's a lot of skepticism around witchcraft and like, oh, you know, there's real or whatnot, but like connecting to nature and like once you really open yourself to it, you can really feel the energies around you, and I think that's really powerful feeling, especially for somebody who's like made to feel powerless and like not able to access any way of empowerment. So it's like the small things.
That's cool. So is it something you'd ever see being a part of your life? Witchcraft?
Oh yeah,
or?
yeah. I mean, I practice witchcraft, so I am a witch, and it's like I don't do like over the top like hood with candles everywhere in the middle of the woods thing, which that would be sick. I want to do that at some point, but just like small things like drinking my tea in the morning is like a way to kind of like start off my day, focus my energy for the day, kind of like really set the tone, and then like meditation, and yeah, like burning candles and incense. Under the blue moon, I charged a wishing stone that I found in Iceland,
which was sick because I climbed up this really crazy volcanic rock formation, and the snow was just sitting perfectly. Like no other gravel was around. It was just like perfectly sitting there when I came up to eye level. And I was like, that's mine. And so just like little things, but yeah, definitely it's like a big part of what I do now.
My name is Ann Tallheimer.
And what's your project?
My main project is Booty, which is an autobio comic I've been doing since 1995.
Wow, since
Yeah.
1995.
Yeah.
One a year, or is there a regular?
About one a year. It's a very weird publishing schedule, but I did finally put out a long-awaited collection.
Wow.
So it's in book form now.
Cool. So has it been in Boston the whole time, or traveled with you?
It travels with me. I mean, I grew up in Massachusetts and did it for a while here. Went to grad school in Delaware, did it there. It started kind of as a way to stay in touch with friends, and then came back to Massachusetts. I live in Holyoke now, and yeah, still going.
Cool. So what drew you to self-publishing in the first place?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, mostly I love the idea that I can make a little book that is made, you know, my hands. I made it, I put it together, I designed it, I did this, I did that. So someone picking it up and looking at it, like, that is the thing that I folded myself, things like that. I like the hands-on nature of it.
Cool. Yeah, and what's the gist of Booty? Like, what's
My
the vibe?
adventures. Like I said, it's autobio, so it's mostly me. Different things, my cat, roller derby, a lot of roller derby. I finished a doctorate, so some of it was about finishing that, which is a beast of a book. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, just adventures.
Yeah. Does your doctorate relate to this creative work at
A
all?
little bit. I wrote about comic books. I wrote about comics. So.
Cool. Well, great. Thanks, Sam.
Show! Would you dress up? Show! Would you dress up?
What are your projects?
I have like 20 or 25 zines. They're all different, and they're all basically just jokes. Lots of stuff about food and music.
I'm an illustrator. All the zines are based on my drawings. I've been doing a daily drawing project since 2007, so a lot of them end up becoming themes and going together as zines. But there are definitely lots of jokes.
Cool. And what drew you into self-publishing in the first place?
I don't know. I think I just since I was a kid was like making little books and stuff, and then you learn that there are like things called zines, and so you just kind of start following like zine mechanisms or whatever. Yeah, for me that's it. It wasn't really like a choice. It sort of always did it, I guess. I don't know.
You were doing it anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm an illustrator now, but I have a background as a graphic designer, so I used to do that. So I like taking my drawings and putting them together. I like making little books, and it's just fun to kind of make your own thing and decide what you want in there and like curate your own thing.
Cool. And what motivates you to keep these projects going?
I have to make stuff, or I feel like I'm gonna perish. And so this is like a way to, I make stuff for clients every day too, but this is a way to just have total control over like what I'm making and who's gonna get to see it and stuff like that. So it's like staying alive motivates me.
I just like doing it. I love, I draw every day and I just like doing stuff with them. It's fun to see them all together and it's just fun for me.
My name is Sai.
And what's your project, if it has a name?
My project is called Great Grind Golden, and it's basically art, zines, other paper products that are mostly from the Library of Congress. I take photos from the Library of Congress and collage them mostly in Photoshop, but I've kind of been dabbling with actually doing collage on paper.
And why Library of Congress? What brought you there as sort of the source?
I honestly don't know what brought me to the Library of Congress. I've always really liked archives, so I'm always like dabbling in online archives. And then when I decided to start making zines and start kind of exhibiting my work, it was just a natural step, just because I love digging through archives and kind of learning history through it, seeing black faces, and just seeing what I can find.
And what brought you to self-publishing in the first place?
Just being on the internet so much and seeing everybody's like zines and blogs, and you get to know so many printmakers out there, and then I feel like it kind of gets to that point where you wonder whether you can make it yourself, and I think especially because in the zine community and in the print community there aren't many people of color, and so I figured if I wanted to see more work featuring people of color and about people of color, I have to do it myself. So.
Cool. And I think you just touched on this, but what motivates you?
I'm motivated by a desire to create artwork that features people of color, that touches upon complex ideas about identity that I think need to be talked about.
Great. Thanks so much, Cy.
Is this your first time at Boston Zine Fest?
No, I was here last year.
Any, I don't know, any war stories?
Not really, just like fighting the war against boredom when it gets slow.
Sure.
But other than that, it's fun.
Any strategies for dealing with that?
We made a bingo card. So we're like checking off people who, fall into these categories.
So can you tell me about Press Dog?
Yeah, I started making this comic in 2011, and it started off as kind of just like a joke about like a dog turning on his crust punk owner and getting revenge.
Revenge for what?
Just like treating him bad, not feeding him, like spending his money on beer instead of like dog food, and just like subjecting this dog to this like romanticized life of squalor and travel and rebellion, I guess, that the dog never signed up for. So the dog gets his revenge and then kind of runs off, and the rest of the series is about him kind of interacting with these different characters, like punks and anarchists and just various weirdos, and kind of trying to find his place in the world, I guess.
Could you tell me about the construction process here, like how you make them?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of do like a rough storyboard on pencil and paper beforehand to just get a sense of the pacing of the story, and I try to like focus on one character per issue, and kind of they're the star, I guess. So I ask myself questions about like why, how do they get in the position that they're in, where do they want to go next, like what's their backstory, and kind of flesh it out from there. And then I draw with a Wacom tablet and Photoshop, and so I do the roughs on there, and then polish it up, and go to the Staples self-serve copy center usually the day before Zine Fest, and make a bunch. And
Were you ever a crust punk?
No.
All right.
I mean, I guess I don't have anything really against them. They can live, anyone can live however they want to live, but the dogs, they don't have a choice, like they're at the mercy of their owner, and so I just felt like someone needs to tell their story.
My name is Tara Bean, and I'm a cartoonist and a high school art teacher.
What's that like?
It's fun. I love teaching, and I like making art with other people. And when I'm not doing that, I make my own weird comics that I don't always show my students.
Are these
are them.
comics?
Yeah.
Could you tell me about Guerrilla Year?
Yep. Guerrilla Year is sort of experimental autobiography, and it's getting less autobiography as I work on it, and more just like comics about that always kind of like a gorilla throws itself in there, and I guess I'm playing with I actually did watch Gorillas in the Zoo for a long time, but I also like how gorillas were part of comics and pop culture and that sort of thing too, so I like playing with just the imagery of gorillas as well.
Aside from King Kong, I'm not like super familiar with gorilla imagery. Could you expand on that?
Oh yeah. Okay, so Konga is a gorilla comic book character you should know. Gorilla Grodd is a more famous one. Then there's just like really, if you just Google like Gorilla's cover art comics. Like you'll get the weirdest looking cover art you've ever seen because they were just realizing that as long as there was a gorilla on the cover, it would sell. And so even if the story didn't have a gorilla in it, the cover would have a gorilla on it. So that kind of cracks me up. And often,
are you employing that strategy right now?
a little bit like sometimes the stories inside of here don't have anything to do with the cover art, or maybe just very loosely.
I can't believe what I'm hearing right now.
I know,
The subliminal.
It's fun. So yeah, so that's like probably a series I'll just always do. It's not super popular. It's really weird, and it's like I have a small audience of people that enjoy it. Then I do other comics like Ms. Bean's art class that are like autobiographical and they're more funny and they have punchlines and like probably are acceptable to a wider audience. And then this is another comic called Part Farts.
What is that about?
That is just a bunch of short stories that I did with my friend Rebecca Viola and her husband Jason, and he drew the images for her and she wrote the stories, and mine I did both. And they're just like little stories that didn't fit into our other collections, so we put them all here.
So, since you're an art teacher, I have to ask, you mentioned you don't show all of your art to all of your students.
Right.
Is there ever something they show you that you're like, fuck yeah, but you have to like berate them for because
No, I never.
It's a little too edgy for school. It's like
yeah, that is a good question actually. I feel like my job as an art teacher is to be the place where they are allowed to do whatever they want.
Cool.
But what I put on the website or what I show their parents, like maybe I have to hold on to my job at the same time. So it's like a tricky line there.
Can you show me some of your comics?
Absolutely. This is a brand new release, Blades and Brooms. It's about a little witch, and it's a parallel story. So you got the little girl getting ready for a morning routine. Same goes with the witch. It's all parallel story. Here's another witch story. This one's kind of a little more spookier. It's a retelling, actually, of the story of Hansel and Gretel. You find out she's the one guarding the house. It's a pretty good one right here.
How is the Zine Fest experience so far?
The Zine Fest experience is great, actually, right now. This is my third ever zine comic convention. I've done Ripe Expo in Rhode Island twice, and this is my third one overall doing conventions and festivals in general. So I'm still new and emerging, but
I don't know, it sounds pretty dedicated.
Oh yeah, I'm totally dedicated. I've started once I was in college. I've always liked drawing comics and everything, but I finally want to put it out into the real world. I really like the physical feeling of comics. I love web comics and stuff like that, but the physical printed feeling of it, there's something magical about it. I love sharing that with everyone.